Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. What's up, what's up, what's up, what's up, Big Connect? We're coming in waves. Tonight we got Draco, we got Mr. Maverick, we got Myron Paynes. That's me. The world ain't what it used to be, man. So how are you guys doing tonight, Draco and
I'm doing
Maverick?
great. That was a good that was a good intro. I'm doing great. I'm watching the markets, trying to take the time that I have to sharpen up my tools and pay attention to what's going on and learn more about crypto while we're in this kind of sideways and downward action.
How are you doing, Mr. Maverick?
I'm good, Myron. Hey, I got to work on my intro. That was the best
That
yet,
was
by the
awesome.
Man,
way. Yeah,
man,
great job.
when all we have is pain, all we can do is just meme and laugh, man.
I know.
It's this
I
is no
know.
stop. So I guess we'll just do what we always do and just kind of talk about the market. I mean, there's not a lot going on, honestly, with the market. Back and forth, a lot of sideways action. No big moves either way. I think Draco, you have some charts pulled up.
Yeah, let me pull up the charts here, guys. I gotta say, this is it looks like we're starting to kind of get back to where we were in a smaller time frame here. It's pretty tight down in this corner, but it's the same stuff that we were seeing here before we hit a downward trend. We kind of went sideways over here, but if you kind of zoom in right here, they were calling this a bear flag.
Oh yeah.
So we were coming down here, then we started to consolidate a little bit downward, but also sideways, and then a sharp downward movement. So I'm hearing a lot of people saying that this is another potential bear flag, especially since we have very low volume. The volume that we have right now is very, very, very low, which means there's a little bit more. Bitcoin's a little tender. It doesn't have a lot of volume backing it up. So you could see even today that we kind of dropped, from the mid 30, 30,500, 30,400 range, and now we're already back down under $30,000. So if we lose this price support in this basic range here, that's above 28,500, we could see a pretty sharp decrease, just like we saw back here, just a month, at the beginning of the month of May.
So I'll tell you a little bit what I saw on Friday and today. So on Friday, actually, since every time I'm working from home, I'm pretty much like just watching the markets. I'm slacking. So don't tell my boss. So hopefully my boss doesn't watch this. But so on Friday, me and my friend, well, we watch mostly the stock market now because crypto, man, there's not a lot of action going on. So on Friday, we had one of the biggest drops. It just kept dropping like nonstop. It was 385 for SPY is kind of like the bear territory area. So it went down, it broke that, and just kept on dipping down. And we're essentially, so on Friday, we hit the bear market territory. Then, like the last 30 minutes to an hour, it pumped all the way from 380s. It pumped a couple points to close above the bear market. And that was insane. So my friend, me and him was like, man, like it's been bleeding so long. And right now we're kind of looking for a relief rally. So he bought a bunch of puts. I bought like one or two, and I stopped out on some of them. And I bought another one towards the end of the day. And he bought, I think, over 100. So he has thousands or like even five figures maybe on the trade. Then he sold it because it was going so crazy. He sold it for $5,000 loss on Friday before it pumped. Then today, the market was up in the morning and he was calculating it. He was at work. He's like, dude, now if I held it, I'll be $20,000 in profit right now. I was like,
Oh,
man, you paper hand, man. So he was not in a good mood today. But today, so what happened today? The market went up, then came down. But what's interesting about today is after hours, Spy got killed, QQQ got killed. Why? Because Snapchat, man.
Mm-hmm.
Snapchat missed earnings and it was pretty bad and it brought down Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, basically anything that's social media related. Well, the biggest one is Facebook. And it brought
so
down the market with it.
hey, Myron, explain to me how that happens. Like, how does one company, Snapchat, have that big of an impact on the market?
Dude, because you're a boomer and you don't use Snapchat. That's the biggest social media. No, I'm just kidding. The reason why it brings it down because people use it to like kind of correlate. They say, hey, if Snapchat's guidance is this bad. I know Facebook already had the earnings, everything. Honestly, it wasn't good. It rallied actually off of their bad earnings because they already sold off so much. But when they look at things like that, they say, hey, if social media as a whole gets sold off. Like last week, what missed earning was Walmart. So when Walmart missed earnings, that was on Monday, and people were like, okay, so maybe the consumer is okay because we're watching Target earnings on Tuesday. So the market didn't sell off that much, even though Walmart got hit pretty hard. Then Target came in Tuesday. They had 4% increase in revenue and 50% decrease in net income. So
Wow.
we got completely killed. Like the stock, I think, went down like 20% or something. And after that hit, so everything went down. Macy's, Dollar General, Walmart went down more. Costco got hit. Kroger got hit. Albertsons, like every single store started getting hit, even though they don't have earnings. But because they're looking at these big ones, so they say, hey, if they're getting hit this hard, that means everything else is getting hit hard.
So what you're saying is there's nowhere to hide.
Right.
Essentially, yeah, there's no way to
It's
hide.
like a domino effect in this sector, right? If one shows up with bad earnings, people are predicting a future outcome for like businesses.
So what you can get is, one company has bad earnings and the other ones get sold off so hard, but maybe they come in with earnings and it wasn't actually that bad, then you have some relief. Like this week, one of the big ones is Costco, and Costco has been one of the strongest consumer, the retail stores, that's being around. It has a huge, it's up huge since COVID. If Costco comes in and, if the earnings is decent, maybe the market's like, okay, so maybe it wasn't that bad, just those Target and the Walmart. But if Costco comes in, it's bad. I mean, nothing looks good now. Usually, the consumer staples are the areas you flee to when you have recession, inflation, because people have to buy food. People have to spend money, like especially the low-income ones, Walmart, Dollar Tree, and Dollar General. But if those are getting hit, usually there's nowhere to hide. It's rough.
Yeah, and the last thing that I'll mention specifically about the Bitcoin chart is be careful who you listen to and where you get your advice. So, I try to give some general idea of what I think is going to happen. But I mean, if you go out there and start Googling, price action right now for Bitcoin, one person will say, we're about to have a huge rally. We're going to go to all-time highs. And then you'll have another person say the opposite and, and everything in between. Just be careful and think about what they have to gain from that. And I think a lot of what is going on is nobody really knows. So they're taking a wild guess at it so that when the market does make a move in that direction, they have a 50-50 chance of saying, look how smart I am. I told you it was going to go up if it goes up, or I told you it was going to go down if it goes down, right? So just, be careful of that. I mean, basically what this is showing with, if you look at this from a macro level, 2000 yard view, perspective, there's nothing good right now. This should, you should be looking at this chart and saying, I mean, look at this. This is where we're coming from, and this is where we're at, right? You should be looking at that and saying that doesn't look very positive, and everything that's going on globally and macroeconomically, there's no positive news. There's nothing good. So to say that this is going to rally straight up literally makes no sense. So just be very careful about what you're doing. I think that we're going to be seeing, maybe we get a relief rally and maybe retrace up to the low 30,000s, 30,500, maybe at the 34,000 at the highest, and then we're going to see it come straight back down. So just don't get caught in that.
Even if you have positions, you should look at relief rallies as chances to sell off, not to buy more, because we're not in a bull market, right? Yeah. And I want to say what you mentioned is so good, Draco, because what I want to say right now, I think right now the key is just to be patient. If you're trying to enter in for long position, unless you have a dollar cost averaging strategy, which is okay. But today, I was watching YouTubers that's like, oh guys, you gotta buy the dip because you always buy the dip. And he was talking about Tesla, and honestly, like I'm very bearish on Tesla right now. And so I made a comment. I said, hey, if you're buying for a short-term swing, that's fine. You're playing these relief rallies. But if you're buying for like long-term hold and things like that, maybe just wait a little bit, just see where the market goes. Because just like you said, Draco, no one really knows, man. And Jay Powell is talking tomorrow, so we don't know what he's gonna say. He loves the stock market, but the thing is, he also have to worry about inflation. So we don't know. It's a wild guess from here. And I made that comment. What one guy said to me. He's like, "Oh, so you think Warren Buffett is wrong?" So basically, that comment is Warren Buffett has been buying a lot of assets recently.
Right.
He's been buying a lot of Apple, City, and different things like that. So that comment, it makes sense on the surface where you're like, oh, Warren Buffett is buying, so like this is the bottom. Well, first of all, if you listen to Warren Buffett, he says he doesn't time the market.
Right.
He just buys when he thinks it's in the value range, right? So when he buys, it can keep dropping. And the second thing of Warren Buffett is he has billions of dollars that he can keep buying if it keeps dropping. The question you have to ask, like, if you have your life savings and you're like, oh, dude, Warren Buffett is buying, he bought billions of worth. I'm gonna go all in because this has to be the bottom. Well, if it's not the bottom, you just ran out of money to buy the dip.
Yeah.
So if you have like $50,000, you're like, oh, I'm gonna try $10,000 to buy the dip right now. Okay, fine. You still have $40,000 left. But if you're going with the mentality like, oh, Warren Buffett is buying, so I'm going all in because this, Warren Buffett is not wrong, then you're stupid.
Be careful.
Yeah, you're stupid.
If you really think that you have the same buying power, or you're going to be able to leverage the same strategy as Warren Buffett, you're absolutely mistaken, right? And I would dare to say that Warren Buffett's holding strength is way, way better than ours, right?
Oh
Like
yeah, and the thing is,
he doesn't just buy and trade. Like that's not what he does. He buys and holds. Like,
Yeah,
and then he tries to help transform the organization from being such a big stakeholder.
and like these billionaires too, if they lose a couple billion, you're like, oh man, he's down a couple billion. He's still a billionaire, man. But some of these people, they're like YOLOing with their paycheck. They can't even pay rent. That's a whole new issue, man. That's a different than these billionaires averaging down with their stocks. Where
here's the thing, though, you got to remember about point of view, right? It's all about point of view. You can change the world. You could change out the outcome of war by point of view, right? Think about it this way, though. If you're buying Bitcoin and you're doing what we've always talked about, what is the typical holder? What should you be buying Bitcoin time wise? You should be looking at this as a 4-year investment, right?
Yep.
I can pretty much guarantee you, if you're buying this at 30,000 right now, that's not a regrettable price to buy Bitcoin for a 4-year investment. If you're going to try to buy this and sell it within a few months, don't do that. Like, that's not a good investment strategy right now. But if you're buying this with the mindset of, I'm going to hold on to this long term, this is a minimum 4-year investment for me, this is not a bad place to accumulate Bitcoin. Just realize that you're going to watch your bags go down at some point. It's not going to sustain this forever. Yeah. So I think that's just something important for people to realize.
Or if you're like, I need to buy this, I need Bitcoin to go up because I have rent to pay, so I'm buying a dip right now. Stop it, man. Stop it. Yeah. Figure out a way to pay your rent. Play with money that Drake always says. They'll play with money that you don't mind holding for 4 years. So just pretend it's gone.
Right.
Then if you have that money, then buy it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Hey, just to highlight, just to highlight what you started with, Draco, is pay attention and watch closely those that you get your information from, right? If it comes from an area of feelings, then I'd tell you to run for the hills, because feelings will make you lose money every time. If somebody says, I feel like it's about to do this, just don't even listen. Don't even bother reading it.
Mm-hmm. Good advice.
Maverick's been blowing up my phone. He's like, bro, please buy the dip, bro. This is different, bro. Michael Saylor is really up here, bro. Bro, this
you
is
you and your memes, bro. Dude.
Yeah, you are the meme king, by the way.
So we'll go into our actual topics. So today, GameStop, which is a lot of the reason why people got into the market. Actually, it's one of the huge reasons I got into the market. And that was an idiot coming in buying like $200, $300. But GameStop today unveils crypto and NFT wallet, and shares jumped 3%. And honestly, 3% isn't a lot, but maybe them trying to get into crypto and NFT, maybe that's some news, because man, there's a lot of apes, so-called apes, diamond and apes in GameStop, and maybe this is for them to give them some attention to say, hey, we love GameStop. What is this crypto? Maybe I need to get into it. Well, NFT, so this extra exposure. And I think right now with the whole short squeeze, I'll mention this. GameStop and AMC, the huge rally, they actually did a research. Someone actually looked at data. It wasn't the short positions covering. It's more so many people were buying that made the price that high. So it wasn't, people were still waiting for the mother of all short squeezes, go to 10,000, things like that. Stop. That's not going to happen. It went that high because there's so many people buying, not the shorts covering. Okay, but that's a technicality. Okay, but we'll go on to this. Draco, what do you think about this?
Well, I think it's a really smart thing because GameStop did make a whole bunch of money. They had a lot of money pour into their stock market and all that kind of stuff, and they knew they needed to pivot their marketing strategy and their business strategy for a long time might not survive, right? So I've been saying this for a long time, both with the inner circle of friends and people that I know. And I actually remember having a specific conversation with my wife about this one morning. I said, if I could send them a message and tell them, good old Draco, the smart guy that he is. I mean, I think they've already had this idea, but my idea was they should make like a universal gaming token, and then like make their own wallet and their own blockchain, and say that when you make a game, if you want it to be like an actual currency that everybody could use, then you utilize our token in your game. You integrate them. So if you're going to play the next Final Fantasy, like we've talked about, or you're going to play, the next whatever it is, Call of Duty, then the tokens that you use in that game that are for in-game purchases are GameStop tokens, because it's the universal gaming, commodity. That's the universal gaming token. I always thought that would be a pretty good idea, but based on what this is saying is that they're getting into having an Ethereum wallet so that you can put NFTs in there. And I think that's what that's going to come up with is I think GameStop's going to start creating NFTs. I mean, that's just my speculation, but it's saying right here that they have a digital wallet for storing and sending and receiving crypto NFTs ahead of its launch of its NFT marketplace. So if GameStop comes up with a marketplace and then they have their own NFTs and things on there, I mean, it looks like they're trying to get ahead of the times and trying to, rebuild their worth. And I think this is the right way to go for them, because we've done other articles and we've looked at other data that says that a vast majority of people that are involved in crypto are also gamers.
Yep. And if you scroll down a little bit, Draco, I just want to mention this before I pass it on to Maverick. Have you heard of Immutable X?
Yes.
So I heard it too. I haven't looked too much into it, but that name popped out to me. So they're actually partnering with, I think, a known name in doing this. And maybe, they can make a crypto that gets you some pre-orders, some bonus that can give you extra things in the games that will be released. So it can be interesting, I think. So what do you think about this, Maverick?
Yeah, I think it's a great pivot for them. I mean, you walk into a GameStop now and you see all these games on the wall, but yet how many people are actually walking in and buying games like they used to? Everything's digitally, bought now, it seems. Even a lot of the consoles, they're coming without, actual drives or disk drives in them. It's just a hard drive and you download it to your unit. So I think now's the time to pivot, right? Now, whether they're going to be able to compete in the market, especially as saturated as it is, I don't know. But much like we were talking about Facebook or Meta or whoever was starting up a NFT project, and how people are like, some of us still are of the belief that they will be successful, even though they charge absolutely outrageous fees. It just opens it up to a larger community, right? And so that's what this is going to do. Is I guarantee you, there's a magnitude of gamers out there that probably don't own an NFT, but guess what? They're loyal to GameStop. They understand GameStop will make it simple for them to do and to own and to participate, and they're going to onboard people through that. And it's just going to be another business, revenue stream. So, hey, I'm all for GameStop. I think a lot of people, like-minded individuals like you, Myron, that jumped on the GameStop bandwagon a year or two ago. And so I don't know. I think it's a great time for them to do so and still capture the attention that they still have.
No, I think you bring up a good point. And one of the things that I think that we should pay attention to is GameStop was given a second chance. GameStop almost went the way of Blockbuster. They were on their way out the door and they got revitalized in a big way. And it was almost like they were given a second chance, and now they really don't have the opportunity to squander it. They have to do something with what they've been given. And I think this is a good way to do it. And, another thing to think about too, I think a lot of people still can't get past the fact that an NFT isn't something physical, right? And Beeple, we've talked about Beeple in the past. It's an NFT project and creator that also has physical NFTs that you can purchase, that like, it almost comes like on an iPad. and it has all the metadata and like the creation of the NFT that you purchased all like loaded up onto it, and then it's got a bunch of different colors and whatnot. Now, what if this is something where they sell things like that, like hardware that you can walk into the store and say, I want to upload my NFT to this hardware, and you could do that at the store. Like they're going to integrate the physical world with the digital world. I think that'd be pretty cool too, because I don't think they're going to close all their GameStop stores. I think that keeping open physical GameStop stores is also important.
Yeah,
Do you guys
I think
use
after
GameStop? Have you guys bought stuff back in the days, or do you guys still buy stuff from there?
Well, all my games I buy digital if I even, get games. But I do remember like I waited in line for Halo 2, Halo 3,
Yeah.
Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, Black Ops and Black Ops 2. I was in line for those games. Like I remember waiting out in front of GameStop for that kind of stuff. So, I mean, GameStop needs to survive. We can't let it die.
So I think GameStop has one thing that's going for it is since so many retail people are in the stock and are holding the stock, some people may still be holding the stock, that they want it to do well, right? Because if the better it does, the more chance GameStop is going up again. So I think they have that going for them. So now if they can launch something that's actually legit, not just a money grab, I think it really can turn the name around. And one thing I always wonder is when I was, back in the day, we had a gym with my friend, and we trained a lot of high school players. And one of the high school player that we trained, his father was actually upper management in GameStop. And of course, around that time is when like GameStop was really going downhill, and they're kind of worried about the job and everything. I'm always still sitting here wondering, like, if that guy still had a bunch of stock, and if he got to sell it during the huge rally that GameStop had, I mean, that's enough for just to retire off of. So that's one thing that's all I'm always thinking about. Well, not always thinking about, but whenever GameStop pops up, I'm always like, man, I wonder if that guy, I got to sell when it's high. And the kid was we like the kid. He was a good kid. So it's one funny thing to think about, that you're giving a second chance like this, just like you were saying, Draco. And if it wasn't for the short squeeze, GameStop really probably would win out of the business. And that's what a lot of these hedge funds were betting on. And one thing why you say, hey, they only shorted from all the way, from the highs to $5. Why are they still shorting? Well, one rule that goes is if you short and the company actually goes bankrupt, you don't have to pay taxes on the gains. So there's a crazy incentive for these shorts, for these hedge funds to hold it and hope the company goes out of business, goes bankrupt, because all those millions of dollars that they made, zero taxes. It's a weird law, but that's how it works. It's pretty.
I don't like it.
All right, so we'll move on to the next one.
Wait, Mr. Maverick, you were going to say something, I think, for a second. Do you remember what you were going to say?
Yeah, it was just more so. It's almost like GameStop represents a movement now, and I kind of feel like that's kind of what's kept it above water. And I just honestly, I hope to see them kind of revitalize and figure some things out, because their whole business model, it's not sustainable for the future. We know that, so they're going to have to pivot to something pretty profound to make it happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that this is part of it. Like, this might be step one. I mean, if they become the best NFT market, right? And they do it correctly, and they're community centric, and they're doing things the right way, and they're not worried about, miscellaneous gains and, pumping projects that aren't good and things like that. I think that they could become the number one NFT market in the space. They just have to do it right.
Yep, I agree, and they need to reach out to Bourbon-n-Blockchains to help them with some of their issues, because some of the use cases that you've thrown out there, it would be awesome to see a pivot like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to see them do well too, man. I want to see the retail make money for once, man. And I don't have any position in GameStop, but I like to see it go up. All right, Absolutely. So we'll move on to the second topic. Bitcoin mining. This is news from last week, but we didn't talk about it. I think we think it's pretty big news. So China, what happened with China? China banned all cryptos like last year,
multiple times.
Yeah, they actually did. So there was a huge drop off in hash, and for a while China was the number one Bitcoin miner with the largest hash rate in the world. So after that, there's a huge drop off. But hey, now there's mines popping up again. There was a huge spike last week, but either you can say this is underground people mining despite the government ban, or we can say, hey, this is like the government kind of sanctioned mining for themselves, that they can start loading up some bitcoins. And there's talks that China is getting really friendly with Russia right now, and Russia is pretty big on crypto, so maybe are they gonna do some transaction there? Who knows? But this is interesting. I think it's yes, China is mining, and we don't, a lot of the policies in China we don't agree with. But if China bans crypto, man, that's a lot of money waiting to flow back into cryptos. So I think this is pretty big news. We don't really know what this mine is, but we just know there's a mine that got started up again. It's pretty big. So we'll start with you, Maverick. What do you think about this?
Yeah, it's kind of surprising, right? And we don't really have all the details to really understand like the significance of it or who's behind it. But you would have to think it's from existing miners. I mean, because it was a substantial amount, right? It's a substantial amount that's being mined all of a sudden from their country. So it would have to be from existing units there. So I don't know, man. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we're just not even cognizant of, right? And I'm sure there's ways for people to get around the regulation within their country. I mean, heck, there's people that find ways here and within the U.S. as well. So I don't know. I think this will be interesting, and I guarantee you this isn't going to be the last article we see on it.
What do you think, Draco?
I think one of two things are happening here. In my personal opinion, it could be rules for thee, not for me. Yep. Because I remember listening to a bunch or reading a bunch of articles where it was saying that China was seizing Bitcoin equipment. Like they were going into like huge factories and taking all the equipment. So it could be that they are just they're doing all the Bitcoin mining themselves, and they're controlling it, and that because they want the Bitcoin for them, but they don't want to allow their own people to have it because it gives them a little bit of control, right? It gives them monetary control over their lives. And they don't want that. So I think that's possibility number one. And possibility number two is, I would not put it past the Chinese government to reach out to these places and say, okay, we have banned crypto and we've banned Bitcoin, but you can mine it for us and we'll pay you a substantially lower rate, or we're just going to destroy your lives, or some crazy nonsense like that. And they're probably in a position where they have to do it. So they're mining Bitcoin for the government, right? At a huge loss. But I mean, that's what happens when, if you're running something that's technically deemed as illegal, right? And then the government comes to you and says, you can keep doing it, but that'll keep you out of prison pretty much. So they're like strong arming these people. That's probably what I think's happening, is one of those two things. I don't think it's anything good. There's no I don't see any sunshine and rainbows behind this story where there's an economic boom and all these people are making money and creating generational wealth for their families. I don't see that whatsoever.
I think that you already have all this equipment, and right now there are countries flooding into Bitcoin, and then China is banning it, just like we've been talking about for a while, because they lack control on it. But I agree with what you're saying, Jacob, is that the government is doing this for them so they can have it, because this is all the equipment is just being wasted, sitting over there. Why not put it to use, make your government some money, and do whatever you want to do with it? So this is would love to see more news about this. I don't think they're going to ban crypto, at least not right now, because right now, the government has policies that says all the people that has foreign assets, they need to sell them off, because the government official narrative is that so they can fight against the sanctions if something is to happen. But right now, there's so much money that want to flow out of China that cannot flow out of China because they're locking down everything. So crypto is one way that people can get these things out. So I don't think they're gonna unban it.
I agree with you.
But the thing is,
hell, they won't let you out of your house, let alone.
They won't. You're exactly right. And if you go back to China, if you're a Chinese citizen with permanent residency card, you go back to China, there's a lot of people who they take your passport and they cut it up so you can't leave China again.
Oh,
and for those people who in China trying to get out of China to go to other countries, they cut up your passport so you can't leave. So it's really, really shutting down right now. And China has one of the biggest, well, a huge election coming up this year, probably around October or so. Who gets elected will tell a lot about the future of the country. If the current president Xi gets elected, China's going to continue to be locked down. But if the other party gets elected, they say most likely China's going to reopen back up, probably be more friendly towards these foreign countries and everything. But that's, no one knows what's going to happen at this point. But they're mining it. I mean, I think it's kind of good. I hope they just ban it, but being the country that they are, unlikely. But it's still news. All right, so we'll move to the next topic: digital dollar. And we're lumping two things together for this one: digital dollar and is BTC a commodity? So I'll just give you a little overview. So the CBDC, right, central bank digital currency, is going to be printed or made by the Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve is a central bank. I hate central bank. I'll just make that flat out. I don't like the Federal Reserve. I think it's a crooked system, and they're not even federal. If you don't know about that, go look it up. But so the banks are coming out and saying that if Federal Reserve comes out with this CBDC, the banks are really going to be in trouble. One banker said that they say it's going to put a lot of pressure. It's going to disrupt the financial system, significantly harming consumers and business. Guess who said that? Is one of the lobbyists for Bank Policy Institute. So of course, because it's going to hurt the banks. So he's going to come say, oh, it's going to hurt the consumers. So we have another person that says depositing could, 71% of deposit may move into the Federal Reserve if this does happen. So if the Federal Reserve does come out with the CBDC, they're thinking like a lot of money is actually just going to go straight to the Federal Reserve, or somehow it's going to, rather than using banks, people using the system that Federal Reserve have, the blockchains or whatever system they decide to have. I don't like it. This gives even more power to already institution that has too much power, I believe. But we'll talk about that. Let's get you guys' opinion. Now I'll mention the other one real quick. Is BTC. I didn't add ETH because we're running out of space on there. But BTC and Ethereum, let's say, are being viewed as commodities. For those of you that don't know this topic a lot, you want Bitcoin to be viewed as a commodity. You don't want it to be viewed as a security, because when the security, there's a lot of things that SEC can come and do. And there's a lot more regulation that's around security. So you want it to be a commodity, like a property or gold or something like that. So this is a good news if they're starting to view it that way, not just BTC, but also Ethereum. And I'll pass it on to Draco and just to get your opinion first on these topics.
Well, number one, I think that this is just for the first one, for the federal digital dollar. I think it's too early to say any of that. I think that they're speculating just because they want to keep control. At the end of the day, I feel like the banks are whining because they don't want to innovate. They don't want to make things better. They don't want to change. They don't want to add additional computing systems to their already failing computing system. Like, why don't you want to integrate and get better and innovate and create, bring in a whole new sector into banks? Because if you think of it like, we don't want to change, we're going to put our feet in the mud, fuck off. Okay, yeah, you're probably going to fail. But if the banks would accept this, for example, like we've talked about several times, I think one of the huge catalysts for the price of Bitcoin to go through the roof is when banks start having custody of crypto, specifically Bitcoin. When a bank says you can buy actual Bitcoin and store it in our bank, and it's FDIC insured up to $100,000 or $1 million or whatever they decide to do, that's going to be huge for crypto. Everybody's going to buy it. People are going to buy it. You're going to have your kids are going to get Bitcoin in their bank accounts, for when they graduate, 8th grade, because it's super easy to do. And the bank is holding on to it, so it's secure. I think that that's innovation. That's what these banks need to be looking forward to, instead of being a stick in the mud. I think that it's been widely regarded by huge innovators such as Michael Saylor and Cathie Wood have said that if you go ahead and allow the CBDC that is going to be pegged to the US dollar, what's going to end up happening is the US dollar is going to continue to reign supreme. Recently, we've seen the US dollar going down in value, and now it's going back up. But overall, it's gotten weaker in the global market. People are starting to see the US dollar as being weaker emotionally, like the way that they view it. If you make the CBDC the number one cryptocurrency standard that is tied to the U.S. Reserve and the Federal Reserve, and it's the first stable coin that is actually pegged to the dollar, that is regulated to the extreme, it's going to be used everywhere. People are going to use it whether we like it or not. I think that's a huge thing. The banks just need to catch up. They don't want to do anything. They're almost like lazy. Like, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do any change. If they continue to keep that mindset, they will get left behind. And just quickly, I think it's very simple that Bitcoin is a property. It is a commodity like gold. And if Ethereum gets looked at the same way, I think that's huge. And it needs to stay that way. Anything else is bad. Specifically Bitcoin and Ethereum, if they continue to be commodities, that's bullish for crypto in general, and it should never change.
Do you think my stronger tokens are commodity?
I don't want to talk about it.
All right, Maverick. What do you think about this?
Pour salt on a wound. Hey, I'm kind of thinking of around the same that Draco is. The digital dollar. There's so much that we don't know, and honestly, Draco, you were mentioning the possibility of being left behind. I feel like it's almost inevitable. I feel like there's going to be someone else to introduce something before the U.S. does, right? And it would be used. This is also considering that the strength is still up on the U.S. dollar, and it is still reigns supreme. Which there's a lot of beliefs around where we're going to be at within even the next year or two, right? And the chances of them having something like this instituted, even within the next 2 years, is very minimal, in my opinion. And if it is, it's going to be they're just going to completely screw it up. They've already announced that they don't really understand the blockchain and the crypto technologies. Yeah. Well, they've hated it up until they couldn't deny it any longer, right? And so that's when, most recent, the executive order was, hey, branches of the government, go learn, right? And so, hey, they haven't even learned. They don't even have a real true grasp of how it would function, how it would work in today's society, how it would integrate with the dollar and the way the banking system exists as we know it. Because if they did it incorrect, the end result could be absolutely horrible for not just them, but for the country, for the U.S. dollar. So I don't know. There's so much we don't know. I'm always super speculative whenever I see articles on this. I don't believe it. I think we're a long ways away, and unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be the first to the market. Kind of to the same reasons that you already mentioned, Draco. They're lazy. They're set in their ways. Like, what's the average age of these people on this board, right? It's the average age is probably 70 something, right? I bet you my 11-year-old girls can type faster than most of these people.
Right.
I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean, just technologically, they're behind. It's hard to learn, especially blockchain. So, and BTC as a commodity, we've been preaching that for how long now, right? It is, right? If we're going to compare it to gold and all the other hard commodities out there, if it's going to be its own new sector in the stock market here in the near future, commodity is exactly what we want. Now, I honestly didn't have a chance to read this article in its entirety, but hearing someone declare that Ethereum could also be or is being considered a commodity is news to me. I've never heard someone say that before. So
me too.
If it's true, if that's true, which take it with a grain of salt, that's huge news. That's absolutely huge news. And if you look at Ethereum in 2.0, I think in August is when they've declared, I think their new systems are going to go live. It's actually going to become deflationary. It makes me want to do more research, right? It makes me want to consider becoming a more serious investor in it. So all eyes on it. I'll tell you that, especially the Ethereum one. I think that would be awesome if it's true.
Yep. And I was going to ask you guys a question. Oh, yeah. When CBDC comes out, Maverick, is BUSD still going to be your favorite stable coin, or are you going to switch over?
Dude, come on. That's a stupid question, man. You already know the answer to that, man. I would like to say, and I'm not a huge fan. I've noticed that BNB is one of the only green blockchains at the moment, at least on the daily charts. I was kind of surprised by that. So don't know what that's about. Don't know what that's about. I haven't investigated, but I was pretty surprised to see it in the green compared to all the rest.
Yeah. The other article real quick, the Fed one, the Fed.
Oh,
look, there's a picture of my PFP, man. I'm there. You see me? That guy got a weaker chin though, man. My PFP's got a better chin.
No, I mean the last thing I'll say about this article here. So specifically, I hear a lot of the times Michael Saylor referred to as Bitcoin as a property, which I think is more in line with a commodity. The commodities that come to mind for me is like wheat, oil, gold, things of that nature, and I think that they're trying to put those in the same category, and I think that's really smart. And if they lose that category, then they're just going to be regulated to hell, and they could potentially lose value.
Yep. We'll move on to our last topic for the day, which is a sad topic. Bitcoin's 8th consecutive week of red. And you got a sad Pepe right there.
So, I don't see it as a sad topic, but
me neither.
We'll get into it.
Well, it's sad because I think, everything else even bled off more. And even for the equities market, this many weeks of consecutive red, it wasn't seen for many decades. I don't remember exactly how long it has been, but it has been a very long time where every single week closes lower than the week before. And Bitcoin haven't had one, I think, for years.
But the last one that I'm aware of is in 2018, they had 6 consecutive weeks. So this is a high, all-time high.
Yeah. So, even in 2018, when it was bleeding, it was kind of, so after 6 weeks, you got one, green week. But 2018, the whole year was essentially just going down. And we'll get to Draco, your opinion on why this is not bad news. But the thing is, this is talking about when you drop for so long, even on pure technicals, there is something called oversold. And when it's oversold, the shorts are going to take profits on the shorts because now they're in pretty good profits, and the bears are waiting for any news or any pump to come to have them, to give them excuse to buy again. So you got these two conditions working that we should have a pump, but the thing is, the stock market looks terrible right now, and I think since Bitcoin follows so closely with the stock market, is kind of related to why we're having this 8 weeks of straight up bleed. And if you look at Bitcoin dropped a decent amount, but the thing is, the altcoins been dying so much. But the altcoins, today I think a lot of altcoins, even FTM and things like that, was up like 10-15% or even more just on the daily gain. Of course, from the highs, it was down a lot. And this article says is a bear market. It's already a bear market, I believe. We're already in a bear market. But the thing is, honestly, if you don't have a position, this article talks about the wallets that has more than one Bitcoin is 840 something thousand, right? Yeah, 844,906. So it's increasing. And at cheaper prices, people can load up more. And maybe the whales are loading up more here and looking for a short-term bounce. But it's pretty painful if you are already in the market, just to experience week after week after week of losses. And you can see as a good thing, so you got an opportunity to buy for cheaper. But maybe let's get 1 week or couple weeks of relief. Get the, hopefully you don't buy the rip, but just to break this trend. And I think the longer it goes into red, the more likely it's going to have 1 week of green. But we'll go on to Draco, since you said you don't see this as a bad news. We'll go on to you and get your opinion on this one.
I think you were kind of hitting it. So at the beginning of the show, we talked a little bit about the overall, market sentiment. We were looking at this chart here. This one's a little bit more updated, obviously, and we can put this in. And what I see coming is a potential relief rally. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at all of these weekly, so here you go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're going into 9. So this is when this closes, right? If this closes in the red, that would be 9 straight weeks. That's not good. And this is the first time this has ever happened. So congratulations, everybody. You're making history, because this is the first time Bitcoin's ever gone in the negative, 8 weeks plus in a row. Now, the reason why I don't think that that's negative is because we're bound to potentially bounce off of that and come back up. Maybe get a relief rally, like I said, up to in that 34,000 range. And then, unfortunately, I think we're going to come right back down after that. And the only thing that would even stop us from that, in my opinion, is the fact that we do have so many tenured long-term Bitcoin holders. Typically what we're seeing here, the people that are selling and buying so frequently are retail investors, short-term holders, less than 1 Bitcoin. That makes up a lot of the market. And when I say a lot, I mean a big portion of the market. But these people that have 1 Bitcoin or more are holding longer in riding these waves and hodling, which is a good thing. That means that they're educated long-term investors, and we need more of those. And I think that might be the only thing that saves us for dipping under the $20,000 mark. If we get out of this bear market without going under $20,000, institutional investors that are holding and educated long-term retail investors that have more than 1 Bitcoin are going to be what saved the price.
Yep. What do you think, Maverick? You can buy 1 Bitcoin?
I'm an ape, man. I don't buy Bitcoin. I buy stupid coins. No, I'm kidding. Hey, I'm a firm believer in Bitcoin. I honestly, since joining Bourbon-n-Blockchains, it's kind of even bolstered my opinion of Bitcoin since, right? And understanding the use case and how really it's considered a store of value. And I think the proof is in the numbers. Like you showed the wallet count, like that is a prime example that people believe that this truly can be a long-term store of wealth. And so as long as that number continues to increase, right? And it has historically, and there's no rhyme or reason that would tell us any different is going to happen in the future. Man, I'm so bullish for Bitcoin. I know we talk about, it's bleeding and it's nothing but red, but man, come on. Like, unless you have just an abundance of your net worth in that commodity and it's just tanking, right now is the time that all of the rest of us should be really watching, educating, not just listening to people, but really trying to understand what we're looking at so that we can be strategic with our buying. I would tell you right now, the best 2 things to do is to be in a more stable project or stable coin, or dollar cost averaging. I mean, DCAing is one of the tried and true. You're not going to get the crazy returns, but my goodness, like DCAing on something like this long term, if you're going to hold it for 3 to 4 years at a minimum, I just don't. I don't believe personally that we're going to see a trajectory any different than what we've seen in the chart over the past 10 years. So I feel strongly about it. The 8th week of consecutive red, is it alarming? Sure. Nobody likes to see it. Am I worried? Not at all. I want Bitcoin cheap. I want to own several Bitcoin. Please, Myron. You need to talk to your buddies.
I pulled up this visual in the background.
Oh, yeah, what is this?
I'll pull up more of these because I found a bunch of them. But this is actual purchases of Bitcoin. So like the one that just fell off was like 4 Bitcoin. That big one right there is really? 45 Bitcoin. These are real-time purchases and sales of Bitcoin as they come across the blockchain. So when the market is crazy, when the volume's high, it's just constant, just a barrage of balls falling on this thing. It's pretty cool.
Are there red ones that sells or?
I don't know what the color. Oh, there goes a big one.
Wow.
Yeah, that was
That was
359. That was 359 Bitcoin, and it'll tell you on the side over here whether it was a purchase or a sale and all that kind of stuff.
Wow, I didn't know this existed. That's pretty interesting.
I just thought it'd be cool to show you guys this. So if you guys want like a cool screensaver or something that you just have up in the background while you're doing stuff, you can pull this up. It's you just type in Billfold bit bonkers or whatever. You just type that in, or visual Bitcoin. That's another one you can type in, and it'll show you this stuff right here.
Awesome.
Just being a nerd.
That's pretty. So we have a bunch of people in the comments. You know, we have Christine saying that she wonders how many investors are walking away from crypto. Jonathan is also saying exactly. I wonder how many will invest in crypto again. So I think, I think when the sentiment gets really bearish in general, right? That's when you can start getting bullish again. And I think right now, I don't know where they say. Even in 2018, there was a period of capitulation where there was just a huge sell-off before the huge rally that came right after the 2019, 2020s. So I don't think we got that yet. And that's usually a pretty crazy volume when that happens. And you'll have a sharp drop, then you'll get bought back again. And the market, if you look at the market theory and things like that, if you have a bunch of bag holders, that's just like wanting to sell off at every single point. It's very hard for the stock or I guess crypto to move because you have a lot of selling pressure. And if you actually look at some charts, that you can see where the market maker kind of tries to see if they can push a chart past a certain resistance point. If they'll try to see what the selling pressure is. If it doesn't work, they'll just consolidate, hold it flat, get those people who so-called paper hand, get them to sell. And I'm talking about paper hand, not in like trading and things like that, but just there's a mentality of investor. People get bored and they sell. They say this is not moving, but usually when those people get out, then you can move the market again. So right now, I don't think we're at that point yet. And if you're a long-term holder, then you don't really care about whatever I just said right now. But in order to have a huge rise again, you kind of need to get those people out of the market. You got people who get in at lower prices, who's willing to hold for a longer period of time. And then I think we're also talking about the people who are holding for a longer period of time on Bitcoin. If it increases, that's always bullish, right? The less people selling, the less selling pressure you have, the more likely it's going to go up. And I think someone what's this?
I'm not hearing a word. I'm not hearing a word you said because I'm mesmerized by this.
I know. I'm
kidding.
So Christine was like, I wonder what the question mark one was, and I'm thinking maybe it's like Tornado Cash or like a hidden transaction, So they don't know. Like, I'm serious, because if you look at it, it's got question marks on it. It doesn't say. It looks like it's like kind of hidden. They don't know where the money went to. So. Oh, there's a big one. You got to catch them.
Hey, I just put it in water. That's mine. This is how you flex. You're like, hey, watch this. Buy 100 Bitcoins and get a big drop.
I'm sorry, my ADD came out, and this is just fun to watch. Like, there's other ones. I'll try to bring in some other ones. Oh, there goes a whale. Oh, I missed it.
The whales always drop off so fast, man.
I know, because they're so heavy.
But this is interesting. Good website. I think that's all we got for tonight. And
absolutely.
Hopefully, tomorrow is the big news. Jay Powell is talking. It's not one of his official meetings, but Jay Powell is talking. So if he comes down, he's like, okay, we won't be as aggressive on rate raises. We're going to, since the market already dropped a lot, maybe they'll be they call it more dovish. So if that's the case, we can get a short-term rally. And sometimes, in these bear markets, you can get rally for days or weeks even. And during that time, if you have some positions and things like that, you see huge rallies, or if you bought some of the dips here, honestly, thinking about not financial advice, but thinking about taking profit or scale out some of your positions, because I think a lot of people here, even in the comments section, are pretty bearish on this market long term. Not long term, I guess mid-term.
Something to consider, yeah.
Right? So it's always good to, if you're in profit, take your profits. And all three of us here has made the mistake of not taking profits and getting burned. So if you're in profit, take profit. If you have position already, we have huge pump. scale out some so you can have cash if it really drops down again.
Yep. Well, the real thing is buy Bitcoin and hold it for 4 years so that it's $500,000 or more, and
Yeah.
then we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in 4 years.
You can see your little balls coming in right here,
Yeah.
wherever you buy.
Yeah, those little balls are worth $1 million a piece. Watch.
Oh, yeah. So thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Draco. Thank you, Maverick. And have a good night, everyone. We'll see you guys on Thursday, 8:30 Central.
Thank you to everybody in the comments. Thank you to everybody who visited. I appreciate all of you, and I'll see you guys in the chat.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Been a great night.
Have a good night.